part B for the expression that gives us the volume of the object. Let's enlarge. When we create on that region R cross sections that are squares. If you recognize this to be your board, would you be willing to talk about it? Elena. G of x minus f of x, and you square because it's a square and that's the area of the square, and same from 0 to 3. Since the problem labeled g of x and f of x, you don't even need to do that. And I advise you to actually not do it just in case you do it wrong, because then you will mess up and lose points. So you can stop right there and just say maybe V instead of A for volume, right? Because you integrate the area to get the volume, and just leave it to this, okay? If you want, you can copy what's G of X and F of X, but I don't advise you to do anything else with it. In case you're doing something wrong, you're risking to lose the point. Okay, thank you. And let's see. Again, don't go farther than needed. Let's look at this one. And if you recognize this to be yours, can you please talk about it?
Oh, that's mine. So,
Nico?
no, so I was thinking like the washer method because
Yep, when you revolve around this, you create a washer.
Yeah, so I just found the the volume of the parabola, since that's like the bigger volume.
So you measure the upper radius or outer radius from the axis of revolution to the parabola.
Yeah, that's 5 minus f of x squared. And then I subtracted the inner radius, which is 5 minus g of x squared.
Very good, because the formula for washer is pi integral from A to B of outer radius squared minus inner radius squared. And this again are the radii. Remember, you measure from the axis of revolution to the farthest function for the outer radius, and then axis of revolution to the closer function. And when you measure those radii, remember the distance between the lines, that's 5, and now you minus this piece, which is what, f of x, so 5 minus f of x. And then for the inner radius, you do 5 minus this distance from the x-axis to the line, so minus g of x. 5 minus g of x is the inner radius. And again, you can stop right there. You don't need to do anything else because the problem labeled what is f of x and g of x. You don't need to write necessarily the expression or do any computations. And I would not do, just in case I make an error, I don't want to lose the points. Are there any questions about any parts of this problem, Ansh?
So if we were rotating it around like the y-axis,
then everything will have to be in terms of y.
So can we say f negative 1 of y, like the inverse of y?
Well, they will give you functions that are easy to get x in terms of y. So you will need to really come up with x equals some expression in terms of y. And they will make it easy to get it. Or they even give you that. They will say x equals whatever expression in terms of y.
So they'll never give you.
They will not make you build the inverse of a function. Because they don't want to test algebra skills. That becomes mainly algebra question. Yes,
so because it's another like setup and do not evaluate, with just the left side of that, where you're just 5 minus f of x squared minus 5 minus g of x squared, that's
You will get all the points just doing this. Yeah. And I want to show you one more scenario for this type of problem. If the axis of revolution, instead of being here as we had y equals 5, what if it's at -1, y equals -1, and you revolve? Let's see if somebody can tell us what is outer and inner radius. Again, same region, and observe if we revolve like that, we create a washer. Aditi? So it will be g of x and just that? Minus what? -1, okay, or g of x plus 1, and f of x, or not, r of little r, because that's plus that, this is the big R, and inner R, or inner radius, it's what? F of x minus -1, which means basically plus 1. So still top minus bottom, but observe top is now the function, and the bottom is the line, and because the bottom had a negative, becomes minus minus or a plus. So they would give you something nicer where actually this is not really that bad. F of x here can be written as y equals x minus 1 squared. So you can actually get x quite easily if you do x minus 1 equals plus minus square root of y, but because we are in the first quadrant, we will say just square root of y. So x will be root of y plus 1. And from the other one, when you have y equals x plus 1, you get x equals y minus 1. And if you revolve, let's say, around the y-axis, the outer radius is the one that goes to the parabola, so it will be this one. The outer radius will be square root of y plus 1, and the inner radius will be going to the line, so it will be y minus 1. But then the volume will be pi integral from 0 to 4, the y limits of this one squared minus little r y minus 1 squared and dy. Okay, so if we revolve around the y-axis, you look horizontal for horizontal radii. So there will be whatever it's x in terms of y, if y-axis is the axis of revolution. If it's something else, measure appropriately.